Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Mystery Theory. Thank you for your patience. I am feeling a lot better now and ready to share all these cases that I had researched and ready to go. What you hear in the background is the majestic Pacific Ocean. It's kind of a windy day here at the beach. But since we don't have rain, I thought a little bit of wind, some waves crashing, and the fresh air of the beach. At least it does it for me. So we'll try something different today. For work motives, I spend a lot of time near the beach. And so today I brought my equipment and decided to share this time with you. If you don't mind, please give this video a like and leave a comment down below. No matter how long you want to make your comment or how short. You can even leave just an emoji if you want. In that way, YouTube starts recommending this video for other people that are looking for this kind of content. So thank you for liking the video and for leaving a comment. You truly are making a difference here in the channel, and I thank you for that. There is also a new video on Patreon, so if you want to get some extra content each month, I'll have a link down below and you can go check that out. If you want to support the channel and get these videos ad-free, I also have a membership where you get the same YouTube content. Okay, now the wind is getting crazy. Hopefully it won't be too loud. I'll figure it out when I edit this video. We'll see if we repeat this or not. But you can check out the membership links in the description box below. But today we're gonna go back 38 years and we're going down south from me to Los Angeles, California. And we're gonna talk about Elaine Graham, who was at the time living her best life. She was 29 years old. She was married to the guy that she loved. She was very good looking, and she had a beautiful 2-year-old daughter. She was also studying for a degree at California State University, Northridge. So, as much as she had her life together, she was also very busy. Even back then, she was finding herself in a position where she needed the extra help. So she had to hire a babysitter. And she was very happy with this babysitter. It seemed like she loved her little girl, Elise. witnesses that day. And to make things worse, she never came back to pick up her daughter. So the police was notified about this, and they started searching for her 1971 Volkswagen. It kind of moved pretty fast for the time that it was. And they actually found it pretty quickly in the parking lot of the Santa Ana Fashion Square Mall. One of the things that they notice is that the driving seat, the position was adjusted for someone that was much taller than Elaine, which led police to believe that somebody else was driving her car that day. They looked for Elaine for weeks. Nobody seemed to have seen her, or there were many witnesses at all, really. But finally, a woman called, and she gave this name to the police: Edmund J. Marr. According to this woman that called, Edmund's sister suspected that he might be involved in the situation or this disappearance. So the police started looking at this guy, Edmund Marr, and he was 25 years old, and he had just been dishonorably discharged from the U.S. Army. Interestingly enough, he'd been in Northridge visiting his mother on the day that Elaine went missing. And later on that day, he showed up at his sister's house, which is only a few blocks away from that campus, or the college campus, which would put him in the area where Elaine disappeared. Police had nothing on this guy, really, other than he was somewhere around in the area where she disappeared. So they didn't have enough probable cause for an arrest warrant. But this guy, which I'm gonna refer to him as Marr, which is easier than Edmund, he was charged with robbery on April 22nd, 1983. And apparently he was in possession of a rucksack when he was arrested, and this was found to contain a large double-edged dagger. Now, when they questioned him, he denied knowing about Elaine, and they still had no evidence to prove otherwise, so they had to let it go. 8 months passed, and in November of 1983, a group of hikers was walking a trail at Browns Canyon. This is just outside Chatsworth. And they found examination, really, and it suggested that she was stabbed to death. And it kind of matches what a dagger could have done to a body, or to her body in particular, which would bring them back to this guy, Mar, who had the double-edged dagger. A forensic specialist said yes, that it really matched that. So they ended up removing the wood handle, and they found underneath tiny traces of dried blood. And it happened to be the same blood type as Elaine's. So the police learned that Edmund Marr was very familiar with the area where the body had been found, because according to his family, he would often hike Browns Canyon as a teenager. All of this added up to really strong but circumstantial evidence. The LA County District Attorney disagreed really with them. The DA was probably right in this instance. Any half-decent defense attorney could win this on reasonable doubt. And if this guy walked, that he could not be tried again, and he would have gotten away with murder. Of course, detectives were disappointed by the decision, but the DA offered what was referred to as some prophetic words of consolation, and they said, "Let's wait until technology catches up with this." I mean, I guess things were happening at the time, but it's so interesting to me to see how much faith they had in the new technology that was being developed. Over the next 18 years, the case remained cold, with a lot of circumstantial evidence on this guy, Edmund Marr. Her 2-year-old girl was now a young adult who never really, well, even though she met her mom, she couldn't remember much of her. Then, by November of 2001, something happened that would change the course of this investigation. The LAPD announced that the formation of this cold case homicide unit, or as it's referred as CCHU. There are just 6 investigators assigned to the team, with a working caseload of over 8,000 unsolved homicides. So, I guess, how do you prioritize what's the first thing that you have to look into? Well, were the ones assigned when into this case, and they were amazed at the amount of really good evidence that was preserved from the crime scene. One of those was the blood evidence. I mean, it was confirmed that it matched the victim's blood type. But now they could do a lot more, and it seemed like the prophetic words of the DA's office was finally coming to fruition, I guess. Because a DNA test would determine once and for all whether the blood on Edmund Marr's knife was a match to Elaine's. But they had a little problem. They had the blood, but they had nothing to compare it to. There were no biological samples from, to kind of match it with. So, it was at this point that Elaine Graham, the daughter of Elaine, was called to contribute to the capture of her mother's killer. She gave up blood and saliva, and a familiar match was established. The blood on the knife was Elaine's. It was finally confirmed. And the person who owned that knife or dagger was the one that killed her. So finally, after 2 decades, his time was up. Edmund J. Marr was arrested and charged with first-degree murder on February 13, 2003. Of course, he denied the charges and kept up that until the eve of jury selection, when his attorney reached out to the prosecutor to ask for a deal. He would plead guilty to second-degree murder and offer a full confession. And since a second-degree conviction carries the same minimum term as a first-degree, apparently the difference is just the parole requirements. The prosecution agreed. So Edmund Marr confessed. And this represents a haunting glance at the cruel hand of fate, really. Where a couple of minutes either side of the event might have averted a tragedy and spared Elaine Graham's life. I always think about that. I'll come back to it though. According to him, the murder was not planned, but he was in a bad mood that day. He was kind of mad that he was, fired basically, or unhonorably discharged from the military. And so he crossed the parking lot CSUN on his way to his mother's house. And right at that moment, Elaine Graham had the bad luck of pulling up in front of him and getting out of the car. So at that moment, he decided to kidnap her. So he forced her back into the vehicle at gunpoint and asked her to drive. He made her go to Browns Canyon, where he knew the area very well. He asked Elaine to get out of the car and order her along the path for about a quarter mile. He then asked her to remove her blouse, and he said that he, quote-unquote, lost his cool and started stabbing her. He insisted that he did not sexually assault the victim, nonsense. Take your blouse off because I am going to stab you to death, and I don't want your blouse to be bloody. It's stupid. Convicted of second-degree murder, Edmund J. Marr was finally sentenced to 16 years of life. For the murder of Elaine Graham. Elaine's daughter said, quote, "You've given me a life sentence of a broken heart," end quote. And then she also said, quote, "You've taken from me the most important person in the world." Now, when one of you guys suggested this assault case, I guess, it was kind of like, okay, a bad luck moment, she was in the wrong place at the wrong time because he really was not planning to do this. And yes, you can believe that he didn't plan ahead to do that, but he happened to have a gun, and he happened to make the decision, like split up the moment. She was there, and that's, what he did. I honestly have to disagree with that. I don't think he was telling the truth when he said that it was something that he came up with at that moment. Wow, the wind is going crazy right now. So, you know what I mean? I don't believe him. I think he said that because he didn't want his sentence to be even longer because of premeditation. Now, I'm a firm believer that sometimes things happen because you're in the wrong place at the wrong time. I absolutely believe in that. And sometimes, like I mentioned this in one of my Patreon videos, I'm not gonna go through the entire story, but there was this time that I had to drive the kids to a basketball game. My son was going to this school that is not in our district, and I had to drive him there because he didn't leave with the bus. It was like a lot of inconveniences that happened that day. He should have been able to go in the bus with the boys, but because I had to turn in this paper, they called me. I don't have cell service at home, so it was like, I was so upset that day, and it made my day drag so much because of that. And it ended with the idea that I would have to drive him away 45 minutes to an hour, depending on, other factors, and up and down a mountain range just to get to that basketball game, which it was going to be late for because, the bus needs to drive him home for about 30 minutes, and then we need to get out for about, almost an hour. So I'm like, we're gonna be super late, and blah 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 blah. And then that day we found an unconscious man on our way to the basketball game that just had an accident. And in the rural community that we live in, it's very heavily wooded, and there's water everywhere. Like there's a river. There are different forks of the same river, and we have creeks, and we have cliffs and mountains. So it is a very beautiful drive, but it's very dangerous if you're not paying attention. And sometimes that road is used for, several vehicles go by, and sometimes nobody goes by. And I really thought that that was one of those moments that everything happened. So I was there when this happened, and we was in the hospital. Very, he was in critical condition. But I do think that I was supposed to be there and help him so he wouldn't die. Now, I don't think I'm anything special, but it's just one of the things that kind of confirms my idea that yes, sometimes we're at the right place at the right time, and sometimes we get upset at traffic or things not going our way. However, something happens that you're like, okay, if I wasn't here so late, or if I wasn't here so early, or if this problem wouldn't have happened, then I wouldn't be able to do what I did today, either for myself or for somebody else. So it's possible that she was at the wrong place at the wrong time, but it is also very possible that, he's just lying and said that he didn't think about doing it or premeditated this kidnapping. It's just in order to get the least amount of years. Anyways, the results are the same. Elaine died. Her daughter lost her mom without even really getting to know her. And her mom became a picture, a smiling picture she kept throughout her life to remind herself of who her mom was. So nothing he would have said or done really after the fact would have changed the end result, which is a tragedy and really leaves you a little bit empty, or at least it does to me, when I see that these things happen to anybody, or anyone really. No matter how happy you are at the time in your life, how miserable, how good of friends you